from the neighborhood of Bet Safafa in East Jerusalem. He rammed his cars on civilians here, wounding 8, 1 severely, 1 moderately, and 5 other lightly. And he was neutralized, killed by an Israeli civilian who shot at him something like 5 or 6 bullets. Now, you can see this is the awful banality of terror attacks in Israel. The asphalt has been already washed from the blood. The car has already been evacuated by the forensic experts. And now the people are here, gathered, people that are demonstrating, expressing their anger, as Israel, in an hour and a half, will stand in memory of the fallen soldiers of the war of Israel and of the victims of terror. Just this year, 19 Israelis were killed in acts of terror. From last Memorial Day to this coming Memorial Day, 31 Israelis have been killed in acts of terror. This is Pierre Clochendler, I-24 News, in the Machane Yehuda Market, Jerusalem.
Let's go now live to our defense correspondent Jonathan Regev at the Western Wall Plaza in Jerusalem. And Jonathan, we'll hear the sirens in a few moments. And then what can we expect during that official ceremony bringing us into Memorial Day?
Memorial Day is always a difficult day in Israel. This year perhaps will be even more difficult due to the wide divide we see in Israeli society in the past few months, and it is already transpiring into what Memorial Day is, with bereaved families, some of them choosing this time not to attend the ceremonies because politicians will be there. So a very somber day as it is, becoming even more difficult this time. The specific event here in the Western Wall, the one which begins Memorial Day, we will probably, I'm saying again probably, not see any protests. This is an event which does not draw larger crowds, and we do not see lots of politicians here. The tradition says that the Minister of Defense and the President and the Chief of Staff are the only authorities attending. This is the case again. It will be the first time for Yoav Gallant as Defense Minister, the first time for Herzi Halevi as Chief of Staff. The ceremony here will probably take place, as it usually does, tomorrow in the cemeteries. That might be a different story.
Indeed it might. Jonathan Regev there at the Western Wall Plaza. We're now about 6 minutes from the siren that officially begins Memorial Day, which, as Jonathan mentioned, traditionally is the one time of the year when most Israelis put aside their political divisions and unite in mourning, but not, unfortunately, this year, with intense division spurred by the government's judicial reforms spilling over into Memorial Day. As a result, some ministers and coalition Knesset members, especially those who did not do military service, have canceled their appearances at memorial ceremonies in the face of possible protests and even lockouts from the event. Both government and opposition party leaders, along with the IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi, have urged the public to keep any protests outside of cemeteries and away from memorial events. And joining us in studio, our correspondent, political correspondent Batya Leventhal. And usually we put politics aside on Memorial Day, Batya. Unfortunately, not this year. As you said, ministers, MKs staying away from a lot of the ceremonies. But not all, we should stress.
But not all, and I think the word that really comes to mind here is exactly what Defense correspondent Jonathan Regev pointed out, probably. There is no run-of-the-mill how this is normally done, in a sense of when politics is involved and is not put aside for a day like this. And so, although we have members both of the coalition and the opposition saying, please, this is a day that it has got so much dread around it originally, don't bring more into that with the political divide, and a day that should already be, you know, so somber, it doesn't need to add on to the fright of tensions. And I think that what we're seeing now is sort of the unfolding of what could happen in the next 24 hours, and that's why Jonathan used the word probably. Again, we have seen a fortune of deputy ministers and members of parliament, not necessarily so many, I would say, more prominent members, coming out to say that they will not be attending the ceremonies.
Some of them are representatives from the ultra-Orthodox United Torah Judaism and Shas
as well as the Likud party. So we've got most people sort of on the coalition side that are deputies that are saying that they, out of respect for the bereaved families, will not attend the ceremonies and that they won't give a speech. However, you do have others on the opposition, but also part of the coalition, like Itamar Ben-Gvir, the public security minister and part and leader of the Otzma Yehudit, the Jewish Power Party, saying that he intends to still attend one of the 52 military cemeteries in Israel, in Beersheba, in the south of the country. And not only will he attend, but he will be making what he's called a statesman-like speech, because he feels that he owes it to the families. This is being very much taken in different ways. So you've got someone like Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is seen as a relatively controversial figure and someone who is known to start a fire, known to start things, saying that he believes that he owes this to the family, while you've got people on the other side, also from his party, may I add, that are saying that they are going to be stepping back from the limelight, that it's not about them today, it's not about the politics, it's about the bereaved families. And if they are asking for ministers to step back, then that is what they will do. And may I point out as well that there's many bereaved families themselves that are not going to be showing up at the ceremonies for fear that they may have to face politicians there that they don't align with.
Right. A lot of the controversy is focused on Minister Ben-Gvir. We should note he did not serve in the IDF, and he has taken pains to stress that he tried to serve. The reason most given is the IDF refused to service because he had been arrested several times for taking part in various protest activities, demonstrations himself, ironically, and that disqualified him because he had a criminal record from serving in the IDF. But I just want to point out we are now looking at the Western Wall Plaza in the old city of Jerusalem. That is where tonight's event will take place. We will bring you the memorial event in its entirety over the next hour, beginning in about 2 minutes from now. We will bring you all the speeches. After the ceremony concludes, we will have an interview with Rabbi Leo D., who's lost his wife and 2 of his daughters in a terror attack just earlier this month. Actually, the most recent victims, Israeli victims of terror, there was a young Italian man, the tourist, who was killed in Tel Aviv, who was the most recent one. Batya, a somber day. We should note also, leading into Independence Day tomorrow.
Well, a lot of people will say that this is really heart-wrenching, that you go from such a somber day into such a joyous day. But a lot of Israelis will tell you that there's almost a comfort in knowing that these are people that laid down, a lot of them lay down their life for the state of Israel. And to watch then that coming to fruition of having a Jewish state, a homeland for so many, is really what brings the 2 days together. We know that the people that have just come from March of the Living, where they go and do a Holocaust Memorial Day, spend a week in Poland, and then come to Israel for exactly that, to see that somberness, but also the joyousness that comes with it.
All right, we just saw, thank you, Batya, for that. We just saw the President Isaac Herzog attend the ceremony. We saw top military leaders of the Israel Defense Forces also. We should know traditionally other political figures, acting political figures, don't attend or speak at that event, so there's nothing unusual about that. We're just now somewhat like 20 seconds from the siren when everything comes to should come to a standstill in Israel, and people stand at attention in mourning. So let's leave you that. We're about to listen to the siren bringing in Israel's Memorial Day for its fallen soldiers and victims of terrorism. We have just heard the siren welcoming Israel's Independence Day. We will now hear the present to arms, the traditional present to arms. And there we see, as we said, the two key figures at the ceremony, the Israeli President Isaac Herzog and the Chief of Staff Herzl Levy. Let's move to the ceremony now.
Yuval and Itai. Major Korva, a helicopter pilot, fell while serving in the reserves on July 20, 2006. His helicopter crashed in action during the Second Lebanon War. Yuval and Itai, twins, who were 1 year old at the time of their father's death, participate in a special escort project for orphans at the Ministry of Defense.
המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטף, שק. המשמר ידגל את נשקו. דגל, שק. המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. החטף, שק.
Yizkor by Mr. Maozia Segal. Sergeant Maozia Segal, fighter and commander in the Paratroopers Brigade, in May 1974, during the battle in the Syrian enclave, his outpost was hit by heavy artillery shelling. Segal was mortally wounded. He lost both his legs and his left hand and his sight in his right eye. Mr. Maozia Segal has been leader of the community and social welfare division in Ashkelon. Maozia Segal is accompanied by Lieutenant Colonel Dor Mansouf. Yizkor. May the people of Israel remember its sons and daughters, loyal and brave, the soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces, its underground fighters and combatants in Israel's war, and all the members of the intelligence community and police and security forces who gave their lives in the struggle for the redemption of the State of Israel, and all those who were murdered here in Israel and beyond its borders by the hands of murderers from terrorist organizations. May all Israel remember and be blessed by their offspring and mourn the loss of beauty, the heroic acts, the sanctity of their willingness, and deep devotion of those lost in battle. May we cherish in our hearts the memory of these heroes of Israel's victorious battles forever and ever. Please be seated. The President of the State of Israel, Mr. Yitzhak Herzog. The siren that pierced the silence just right now, making its way from one end of the land to the next, rattles our souls and makes way for remembrance, which overwhelms us with silence. And I ask myself, I ask us, what other country in the world has such a special sound? It is the sound of pain and hope, of grief and pride. It is the sound of the state of Israel. A sound that calls us to pause for a moment, to lock in the sanctity, to remember to connect together. This year, in the grips of these days of discord, this sound is more powerful, more painful than ever. This year, more than ever before, this sound calls on us in the heart of the stillness, all of us together. Their sacrifice has not been in vain. It shall not have been in vain. I appeal to you, my brothers and sisters, citizens of Israel, at this sacred moment. From here, the wall of longing and tears, from which the divine presence has never moved. And I ask us to mourn and grieve together. May we let that feeling of longing envelop us together. May we let that sound of our collective pain ring loudly on this Memorial Day, free of discord, as we cry for our sons and daughters, as we refuse to find comfort, for they are no more. Dearly beloved families, injured survivors of wars and terror attacks, the defense minister, the IDF chief of staff and heads of the security forces, ministers and members of Knesset, the 10th president, honorable rabbis, mayor of Jerusalem, ambassadors and diplomats, heads of organizations representing bereaved families, and the representatives of the Ministry of Defense, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow, when day breaks, we will head out in our tens of thousands to the nation's cemeteries, to the military lots. Those that tell our uniquely Israeli story, those that speak of our diversity and togetherness, faces, names, stones, headstones. The stone tablets laying over their graves are the tablets of a covenant of fate and of destiny. I wish to speak about one burial lot tonight, one small burial lot, Lot 9, Area A, from 1948 in the cemetery on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem. At the entrance to the lot, in the first row, the first grave stands in silence the headstone of the youngest fatality in the lot, Private Yosef Tzvi Strauss, Yossi, born in Hungary, a young man, Haredi, a survivor of the Holocaust. He joined the youth movement of Agudat Israel, made Aliyah on the Latrun clandestine immigration ship, was expelled to Cyprus but returned. He was a student of the yeshiva in Jerusalem, and with his rabbis, he enlisted in the war and fell in battle around Armon HaNatziv, aged 17. Next to Yossi is buried Yosef Achrak, who made Aliyah from Yemen. 3 years before he was killed defending the Mea Shearim neighborhood of Jerusalem. He dreamt of building a new life in his beloved homeland. Yosef's family wrote about him as he left behind a young wife and a baby just a few months old. A line thus stretches from Hungary to Yemen and from both of them to Jerusalem to Lot 9. When the Jerusalem Conservative wished to send Arik Feinstein, a gifted musician, for a training program overseas, he refused and he said, "I cannot leave the land in wartime." Staff Sergeant Arik Feinstein, a native-born Israeli who served in the Israel police, in tandem with his service as a medic in the Haganah, became the first fatality of the Israeli Defense Forces after the establishment of the state. As he pulled the wounded out of the carnage near the old city of Jerusalem, a rifle's bullet hit the hand grenades carried by this musician medic from Lot 9 on Mount Herzl. and he was killed on the spot. His ballad cut short. On the day Arik fell, Rachel was also killed. Her headstones reads, Private Rachel Zeltzer Rice, daughter of Ada and Israel. And when one looks at the next headstone along, one's heart is shattered by a harrowing realization as one reads the words Private Ada Zeltzer Rice, Rachel, daughter of Ada, Rachel and Ada, mother and daughter. Ada was separated from the apple of her eye, her daughter Rachel, when they escaped the Nazis. Years went by, the Nazi butchered, and the mother and daughter met here again in Jerusalem against all odds. Rachel enlisted, fought in Gush Etzion, and fell as a Lehi fighter on the rooftop of death near the old city. When Ada was informed about her daughter's death, she said, I already know. And 3 months later, she too was dead of a broken heart. The headquarters of the Haganah said that the mother of the sick and injured died. And through the air rises that hymn from days of awe. Tell my mother that her joy has turned away. The son she gave birth to has gone to fire. Where will I find comfort for that mother? And the silent headstones, these conventional tablets, continue to speak in a still small voice. Rachamim Eliezer, a foreign volunteer from Bulgaria, and Raphael Fergi Fadlon from Libya, and Leon Morris Amzel from France, and David Harzahav and Ephraim Oster from Poland, and Yaakov Werner Miller from Germany, and Israel Fenigstein, the box office worker from the Orion Cinema. All of them are buried in Lot 9. David Netanel Mintz, whose father was murdered in the 1936 revolt, alongside with Henry Fernebock, whose father was murdered in Auschwitz, and Uri Cohen, who first volunteered with the British Army and now rests in row 6, near the Irgun fighter Rafael Mika Mike in row 5. They all share the same address, Lot 9, Mount Herzl, Jerusalem. All of them, of all shades, lands of origin, professions, and lifestyles. They all believed in the resurrection of Israel in its soil. They all dreamt of the state of Israel. They all wanted to build and to build in it. They all paid with their lives for our shared national home, here in our homeland. I left to build a new life, wrote Ben Zion Sergio Pavoncello to his sister, also from row 9. He made Aliyah from Rome before he fell on his way to escort a convoy to Jerusalem. Here they call me Ben Zion. Here I will forge a new life without prejudice, without any difference between one human and another. And those words, these last words, keep ringing in my ears, leading the heart again and again to the same place, Lot 9, Area A, the cemetery on Mount Herzl, Jerusalem. One lot, one small corner of God's earth, a lot that altogether is one nation. Citizens of Israel, the siren this year, the intensely Israel signature call is a wake-up call for all of us. The cost of internal strife is heavy. At this sacred place, where so many of our soldiers swear oaths to defend our homeland, now is the time to pledge one more. We have one army and one state. The IDF and the men and women who serve in it must remain beyond all disputes. All of us, from all shades of this nation, must find what connects and unites us. And not only in the cemetery. We must entrench our covenant of life to commit to the unity of Israel, to the eternity of Israel, and to a Jewish and democratic state. Lot 9 and all the military cemeteries reflect to us clearly that our fallen heroes over the years, Jews, Druze, Muslims, Christians, and Circassians, women and men, immigrants and native-born from all across the country, from all beliefs, opinions and worldviews, gave their lives out of a commitment to a profound existential necessity, building together in partnership more and more floors of our Israeli home. We must do everything, but everything, to safeguard this shared home. To argue, to disagree, like always, with all the fervor and passion, but to love one another as sisters and brothers, for we are one people. Dearly beloved families, mothers and fathers, girls and boys, grandmothers and grandfathers, sisters and brothers, lovers. The grief is boundless. The pain is immeasurable. To silent sobbing, there can be no response. You're in our hearts and thoughts all year round, and especially today. I meet you over the years and also painfully in recent months. You share with me your profound concern for Israel's unity, and as I promised you, I'm working day in, day out, hour after hour, to safeguard our beloved country as a strong and unified state, Jewish and democratic. At this sacred moment, I repeat from the bottom of my heart, their sacrifice shall not have been in vain. This past year, too, and even today, terror has reared its head. The heavy price in blood that we've paid for our existence has left gaps among our ranks. But we shall not break. Our enemies completely misinterpret the Israeli culture of argumentation and Israeli spirit. They should make no mistake. We are all one people, one shared society, one state, which will continue to defend itself, will continue to extend a hand in peace, will continue to overcome time after time those who rise us to destroy us, and will continue to walk with heads high in spite of the pain. Beloved family of grief, ladies and gentlemen, from here I pray for the recovery of the wounded in body and in spirit from wars and terror attacks. And I pray for the speedy return of our soldiers and civilians, our captives and MIAs, whom we think about every day. The task of bringing them home is our top priority. I ask all of us in these sacred moments to recognize, strengthen and embrace all the women and men of the IDF, the police, the border police, and the Yamam, the prison service, Mossad, and Shin Bet, and all branches of the internal security forces who keep us safe day and night under incredible pressure, with devotion and a sense of duty, leaving homes and families behind. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Let us hope, ladies and gentlemen, that we come out of this day, a day of grief and pride, stronger and more cohesive, as one man with one heart. And may these verses and words of prayer be realized. May it be your will, O Lord of peace, the King of whom the peace is his, to bring peace within your people Israel, and may peace spread until it reigns over all mankind. As it is written, I will grant peace in the land, and you shall lie down untroubled. I will give the land respite. May the Lord grant strength to his people. May the Lord bless his people with peace. May the memory of Israel's fallen soldiers and victims of terror attacks be seared in our nation's hearts from generation to generation forevermore.
משמר, דום. משמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
The General Chief of Staff of Israel, Major General Herzi Halevi. It was lunchtime before the holiday 1987. A few hours will go by and darkness will cover the trees. The light will just light in a few corners until it's dimmed. Silence will dwell and the prayer will come up from the synagogues, mixed with the noise of the family sitting at the table. And before all that, I went up the stairs, a home in Jerusalem, a young soldier with a letter for the holiday. On these very stairs, 14 years beforehand, was the information from Sinai. Avner is gone. I walk with heavy steps. For the first time, I'll meet a bereaved family, Esther and Ben Zion, the parents of Avner Gavurin of blessed memory. Every step brings me closer to them, and something inside me asks that these steps will never end. President of the state, Yitzhak Herzog, the Minister of Defense, Gallant, bereaved families, ladies and gentlemen. Man was created soul in the world. Each of person has his own journey of life, and they're all individuals in the world. They come to the army and they become comrades in arms. They sleep next to each other in the tent of boot camps. They cover up for each other, and they share their childhood, their families, and their friends. Avner Avik was born on a cold winter day. He was a gifted student. He liked poetry. He was an instructor in the youth movement, a sportsman, a photographer, sole person in the world. Avner recruited to the paratroopers unit. When the Yom Kippur War broke out, he joined the very harsh battles in Sinai. On the 14th day of the battle, a fire was hitting them, and while he was looking for his men, and he couldn't find a hiding place, a shell hit them and Avner was killed. Just a while before that, Avner wrote to his wife Betty, "Today, while training, we jumped on all sorts of stones and rocks, and I suddenly found myself in a bush, and part of my body was in a big swamp, and I was lying there quietly. I was thinking about the days that will come, about days of being with you." There in the mud, Avner felt apparently on what was said, anybody who has a why to live for will be able to maybe tolerate any fire. The picture of Avner was looking at me from the wall of memory in the Scouts movement in Jerusalem. We took him as an example, as a role model for all of us. Although he didn't manage to fulfill even a little of what he promised in life, his memory is still in my mind until this very day because of the void that he left. 24,213 fallen dead of the battles of Israel, and each of them is soul in the world. When they recruited into the army, they were young people, men and women, their future ahead of them, full of hope and significance, impact and camaraderie. Each of them was with a promise that was not fulfilled, hope that was cut in the middle. In the life of every family, the clock tickles, and it ticks on, and it shatters when the bereavement befalls it. The clock of the family continues to tick without knowing that time has already changed. The knock on the door divides the family in two. One time in the past, the life that has been, and the other time ahead, the continuation of life in the shadow of death. But still, only 60 seconds in a minute. But the movement of the hands on the clock is heavy under the memory and the yearning. Some people wish to meet their dear ones here or in another world, and some hope that time will heal. Every family has its own way in this horrible journey. Tomorrow, the cemeteries will fill up with many people who are broken, those who their dear ones fell in battle, some of them in accidents in the army or on the road, some of them by sickness, or some of them that have committed suicide. On the shoulders of all of them, there is the heavy load of bereavement and memory and commemoration. This void we have to fill in our daily deed, which make our dead, fallen dead presence. We call a baby on the name of the uncle. We get and give a scholarship, or build a stroll or a path. Talking to the fallen dead continues until they are still with us because of a poetry they wrote, or a letter they wrote, or a letter they got, things that they said, on the silence of those who remained behind. In all these, we are determining to us a new why to live for, so that we will have the strength to carry the how. We just remarked our freedom when we left Egypt and became a nation. Soon we're going to celebrate our modern freedom when we gathered from all the exiles and established the state. At this time, again, we hear our oath to the fallen. May your sacrifice be worthy. May the void that was opened become hope. You deposited to us a decree for a role model society that remembers why the nation sacrificed its sons and daughters, but knows how to go on the very narrow path between the sanctity of life and the willingness to sacrifice them. This army is the army of the people. That's the source of its strength. And that is the society of free people, safe and prospering. Esther and Ben Zion Gavurin, they came from the concentration camps and they saw a national redemption, but they paid a heavy price. And I saw the price in their eyes. During their lifetime, they saw us developing, coping with difficulties, sometimes disputing, but always becoming stronger. And where are we heading from here? Tomorrow we're going to stand in the cemetery together with the families. I wish that on this day, which is beyond time, we will be loyal to our heritage and we will dedicate ourselves only to remember the fallen dead and the pain for their dying. And beyond any time and beyond any controversy. The controversy is maybe the nicest gift that the Jewish people gave to the whole world. The people of Israel remembers its rabbis Hillel and Shammai for 2,000 years. And it says that although they were controversial, they had disputes, but they married in the families. And that shows you that kindness and camaraderie can live together for what it says, that truth and peace was loved by them. In the paths of bereavement and pain, I meet families from all segments of societies, all opinions, all faiths, but in every meeting I always found a common denominator. Out of our responsibility to defend the memory of the fallen, let's leave tomorrow the current controversies out of the cemeteries. Let's enable the families and the commanders to unite with their memory and to honor the memory of the fallen. 36 years went by since I entered for the first time to the home of a bereaved family. Just a few days passed since I visited the families of people who fell in the last few days. As a commander of the army, it's my duty to protect the state of Israel, to do whatever possible in order to ensure the peace and safety of the soldiers in battle, in training, and in daily life in the bases. As other commanders, I commit myself to continue to deal with the injured and with the wounded, and to do everything possible in order to return our MIAs to their families and their country. The fallen dead, as the Maimonides said, all the people are made in the image of the first man, Adam, and one is not similar to the other. And therefore, the history of man is also unique. And because of that, in the loss of one man, a whole world is lost. And we, the commanders of the IDF and the soldiers, will not forget the fallen. They decreed us to continue with the mission, to dare and to risk ourselves. They are the real deep roots on which the state of Israel was built, Jewish and democratic, and their memory is a lighthouse for us to protect. Let us not forget you. The sons and daughters of the families will continue to accompany you and to hold together the legacy of your daughters and sons, so that our existence here will be worthy of their sacrifice, and may the memory of the fallen dead be blessed.
Eldad
Chaniel, a combatant in the paratroopers, wrote a piece called Angels in memory of two of his childhood friends, Gadi, Ezra, a combatant in Golani, who fell in Jenin during a defensive shield the 4th of April 2002. And Elnatan Shechter, another combatant who fell on his way to action on the 19th of April 2001. And Eldad wrote the following: the angels of today do not have a halo about their head. They have a helmet. They are not white, they're not snow white. They are wearing khaki uniforms. You will not see wings coming from their bodies, because there is a vest on their body. They have no harp in their hands, but they play on different instruments. The angel of the past had one mission. Today, an angel that finishes one mission immediately is taken to the other. Those angels at that time are divided into sections, and so are our angels as well, to units, to battalions, to brigades. The angels of yore would come down from the sky to the earth, but our angels are walking through the land, and they go up in storm to heaven.
משמר אדום, המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
Please rise to read a chapter of Psalms and a prayer to the soul of the fallen, and the prayer of El Maleh Rachamim, and the singing of the national anthem. Chapter 93 in Psalms by the Rabbi of the Western Wall, Rabbi Rabinovich.
שיר מזמור לאסף. אלוהים, אל דומי לך, אל תחרש ואל תשקוט אל. כי נאויביך יהמיון, ומשנאיך נסו ראש. על עמך יערימו סוד, והתייעצו על צפוניך. אמרו לכו ונחרידה מגוי, ולא ייזכר שם ישראל עוד. כי נועצו לב יחדיו, עליך ברית יכרותו. אהולי אדום ואיש מהילים, מואב והגרים. גבל והמון והמלק, פלשת עם יושבי צור. גם אשור נלווה עמם, היו זרוע לבני לוט סלע. עשי להם כמדיין, כסיסרא חייבין בנחל קישון. נשמדו ואין דור, היו דומן להדמה. נשיתי עמו נדיבי עמו כהורה וכזאב, וכזבח וכצלמונה כל נסיכי עמו. אשר אמרו נרשלנו את נאות אלוהים. אלוהי שיתי עמו כגלגל, כקש לפני רוח. כאש תבער יהר, וכלהבה תלהט ערים. כן תרדפם בסעריך, ובסופתך תבהלם. מלא פניהם קלון, ויבקשו שמך אדוני. יבושו ויבהלו עדי עד, ויחפרו ויובדו. וידעו כי אתה שמך אדוני לבדך, עליון על כל הארץ.
המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד נוח.
תפילה לנשמות הקדושים.
A prayer to the souls of the martyrs by the chief
המשמר יעבור לדום. משמר, דום.
rabbi of the IDF.
אחינו ואחיותינו הקדושים גיבורי ישראל, אדירי הרוח והמעש שמסרתם נפשכם על קדושת השם, העם והארץ, במלחמות ישראל, בפעולות הגנת הגמול וביטחון, בעת מילוי תפקידכם ובעת שירותכם. בכל לוחמי המחתרות וחטיבות הלוחמים, וכל הנופלים במערכות העם וכל אנשי קהילות המודיעין, הביטחון, המשטרה ושירות בתי הסוהר, שחרפו נפשם למות למען תקומת ישראל וכינון המדינה, וכל מי שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי המרצחים מארגוני הטרור. זכור יזכור אתכם אלוהים חיים בטוב וברחמים, יקום נקמת דמכם הטהור. ככתוב, ארנינו גויים עמו כי דם עבדיו יקום, ונקם ישיב לצריו וכיפר אדמתו עמו. שם צבאות יגיע אורכם ויחיש קץ עמידתכם. שערי השמיים יהיו תמיד פתוחים לפניכם בנתיבות ובמשכנות מבטחים. תזכו לשב עם מלאכי מרום. תהיינה נפשותיכם צרורות בצרור החיים את אדוני אלוהיכם, כי מלחמת אדוני נלחמתם. נזכה לראות עין בעין בנחמת ציון, ובקיום חזון תחיית המתים שחזה לנו רואה ישראל, הנביא יחזקאל בן בוזי הכהן לאחרית הימים ככתוב. כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, הנה אני פותח את קברותיכם, והעליתי אתכם מקברותיכם עמי, והבאתי אתכם אל אדמת ישראל, וידעתם כי אני אדוני, בפתחי את קברותיכם ובעלותי אתכם מקברותיכם עמי. ונתתי רוחי בכם והחייתם, והנחתי אתכם על אדמתכם, וידעתם כי אני אדוני דיברתי ועשיתי נאום אדוני.
המשמר יעבור לנוח. עמוד נוח.
קדיש
Kaddish,
מפי מר שלום יניב,
the prayer for the dead,
אביהם של
by
האחים,
Shalom
סמל
Yaniv,
ראשון
the
הלל
father
מנחם
of the
יניב,
brothers,
ויגל
Staff Sergeant Hillel Menachem Yaniv and Yagel Yaakov Yaniv,
שנרצחו
who
בפיגוע
were murdered in the shooting attack in Samaria close to Havara on the 26th of February this year.
בני 21
They were 21 and 19 when they died.
לקריאת הקדיש
To call
יצטרף
the
צור
Kaddish,
יהודה יניב, אחיהם
Tzur Yehuda Yaniv will join them. He's the brother of Hillel Menachem and Yagel Yaakov.
נולד
צור
בד'
יהודה
באייר תש"ע,
was born,
ערב הבר מצווה.
and today, this evening, is his bar mitzvah date.
משמר דום.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
The prayer for the fallen dead.
ימליך מלכותי ויצמח בורקני ויקרב משיחך. בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מברך לעלה עולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי תקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
משמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
תפילת אל מלא רחמים,
El Maleh Rachamim, God full of mercy, by the chief cantor of the IDF,
יעבור לדום. משמר דום.
Abramson.
המשמר יחטיף את נשקו. אחטף, שק.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים טהורים וגיבורים כזוהר הרקיע מהירים ומזהירים לנשמות חללי מערכות ישראל שנפלו במלחמות ישראל בפעולות הגנה תגמול וביטחון בעת מילוי תפקידם ובעת שירותם ושחרפו נפשם למות על קדושת השם ובעזרת אלוהי מערכות ישראל הביאו לתקומת האומה והמדינה ולגאולת הארץ ועיר האלוהים ולכל מי שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי המרצחים מארגוני הטרור. בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים וייצור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם. אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו ושלום על משכבותם יעמדו לגואלם לקץ הימים ונאמר
התקווה.
התקווה, the national...
המשמר יעבור לנוח, עמוד נוח.
Citizens of Israel, we're inviting you to go into the Yizkor site of the IDF to light a candle in memory of the fallen soldiers and so to keep the flame going. This concludes the memorial ceremony to the fallen dead in battles of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your places until the president and the entourage leave the square. Thank you.
We have just watched the end of the ceremony, the official ceremony bringing in Israel's Memorial Day for its fallen soldiers and victims of terror there at the Western Wall Plaza in the Old City of Jerusalem. Let's go to our defense correspondent, Jonathan Regev, who is there at the Western Wall Plaza. And Jonathan, a moving ceremony, interesting speeches by President Herzog and the Chief of Staff, Herzog Levy, trying to address the controversy which has surrounded this Memorial Day, and above all stressing the need for unity of Israel and keeping the IDF out of the political dispute.
That is correct, Kalev, especially in the speech given by President Isaac Herzog, in which he said we have to make sure that those who were killed did not die in vain. These were his words, because these are words that we have heard recently. People asking, people of bereaved families saying, our loved one died for what? These are calls that have been heard. So the president is is saying there is a cause, and an important cause, for the fact that those people were killed. Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi saying that we have to make sure that when people attend the cemeteries tomorrow, all of the disputes will be put aside. Will this really happen? I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. A lot of controversy in the last few days regarding some of the politicians that are meant to attend the ceremonies tomorrow. Some have already opted not to come. Others are still coming. It will be a very difficult day, I assume, tomorrow in the cemeteries and the ceremonies throughout Israel.
And Jonathan, interesting to hear Lieutenant General Halevi, who is religiously observant, which is quite unusual for a chief of staff, actually refer to the biblical texts of Hillel and Shammai, two competing views in Judaism, the great rabbis, and referring to the fact that dispute is something basically Jewish, and we should welcome dispute and debate and discussion, but keep the IDF beyond that.
Yes, he even said basically Judaism has brought disputes to the world. This is something that was brought many years ago, but even within the dispute there was always the room to find some kind of compromise. The two competing policies, let's call it this way, always found a way to live together, and it is extremely important for today's leaders in Israel to try and do the same, even in this very divisive climate in which Israel is.
All right, Jonathan Regev there at the Western Wall Plaza in Jerusalem. Thank you for that. And Batya, again, we heard what the chief of staff had to say, the president said, but we have to be realistic that we probably will see some degree of protest or objection made tomorrow. And unfortunately, the media and we in the media will have to be focusing on that as well as the traditional ceremonies of mourning. And it's going to be a difficult day tomorrow.
Absolutely. I think that the somberness of the day really is just going to be heightened by the fact that we are likely possibly to see some skirmishes, some kind of protest, perhaps not on the large scale that we've seen.
No, certainly not that.
In the last couple of weeks in particular, as you mentioned, a ceremony like this, the official ceremony that kicks off Memorial Day, not to have a protest that completely wipes out that entire ceremony, but maybe a couple of people that are standing at the Western Wall Plaza with signs or placards. That is most likely what we would see if there were to be protests in the next, 24 hours of Memorial Day, and obviously 48 hours leading into Yom Ha'atzmaut and Independence Day. What I think has been quite interesting with regards to the speeches, you mentioned that the Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, mentioned about biblical times. We also heard Isaac Herzog mention that the siren that plays for a minute to mark the beginning of Memorial Day has such a controversy in itself, that it's got both hope and pain, right, and also pride and grief. And I think that there really is almost between both the coalition and the opposition, if there is a moment of unity here, is that they do all identify that the Jewish state, perhaps the Jewish people, in fact, are controversial people, and we do have differences and divisions, but that also needs to be a space for dialogue. And I think that that's in particular what the president, the Israeli President Isaac Herzog, who is always at the forefront and the leader of trying to get those efforts at dialogue, was really trying to convey in his message tonight to the public and to the state of Israel.
Right. I'm just going to add that the IDF and military service have become a part of this debate now, almost have moved beyond the initial discussion over judicial reforms when some reservists said they would not continue to volunteer for the duty, especially pilots and elite units, soldiers, if these judicial reforms were to go as passed. And there was criticism from some members of the government. And it became a debate about the role and obligations of the public in military service. And we have seen that play out here during the last few days. And we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out tomorrow. Batya Leventhal, thank you for that. I will remind our viewers, of course, that tomorrow, this only started a full day of mourning and commemoration. Memorial Day will continue throughout the evening, and tomorrow there will be a siren, a 2-minute siren at 11 a.m. local Israel time. And, of course, there will be ceremonies throughout the day at cemeteries throughout Israel and memorial halls. And I-24 News will bring you all that and all that reporting. And, of course, we'll bring you the Independence Day ceremony starting tomorrow tomorrow night at 8. Thank you for joining us.